Sam Seder, Emma Vigeland on the fun half of the Majority Report. Here's some fun news. The executive order to shut down the Department of Education has been signed. There's no legal authority of the president to shut down the Department of Education. It's unclear if Congress has appropriated these monies, what they can or cannot do legally, but, there's a certain amount of you and what army. And so we need the Democratic, lawmakers at the very least to start by saying, we're not going to participate in anything. We're done. If you guys are going to break the law here, we're not going to participate in what you're doing. And instead of going, providing quorum for sessions, or instead of even showing up in these meetings, we're just going to have press conferences all day. And if the press wants to talk to us, they're going to have to come to this press conference and hear us talk about how what you're doing is breaking our government and causing pain for Americans. And here's how. I mean, that's where we need to basically be.
But they're inaccurately reading this as a mandate for Trump, because that's better for them than self-reflecting on, like, say, supporting a genocide, and why that depressed turnout. It's easier to just like roll over and be like, this must be what people wanted.
Well, I mean, it's a party that can't really offer resistance, as they showed when they were in power, and they're showing now.
We will take a couple of calls, not many. I'm sorry. We got a lot of stuff. 646-257-3920. 646-257-3920. Donald Trump, where am I now? Not the impoundment. Oh, here it is. You'll recall, like 6 months ago, I think it was, there was a judge in the Fifth Circuit. The Fifth Circuit is the highest level of the federal judiciary before you get to, not the Fifth Circuit, but the circuit judges are the highest level of the Court of Appeals that you can get to in the federal judiciary before you get to the Supreme Court. And there was a judge in the Fifth Circuit who was auditioning to be a Supreme Court justice, who reversed himself on the idea of natural born citizenship, saying that in the event of an invasion, you obviously don't have natural born citizenship, right? Because you can't have like a foreign invader come in, invade the country, have children, and have them all citizens because they could take over the country.
Duh.
And this is a bit of a backpedal. This was providing an opening and an indication to the Trump administration, this guy's willing to deal as a judge. It's also an indication of what had been discussed in Republican legal circles as a strategy to deal with immigration in this country, to essentially say, we are at war, we are being invaded. So you saw the media start to refer to this as an invasion. Mm-hmm. Today, Reuters reports that Trump plans to invoke an obscure 18th century wartime law in bid for mass deportations. It is the 1798 Alien Enemies Act. It could allow him to bypass due process rights and rapidly deport migrants. If they were deemed, you could deport these migrants if they were deemed part of an, quote, invasion or predatory incursion, which is a novel use of a law previously only invoked in wartime. Thus, the last time it was used in this country was to put Japanese people into what they call internment camps. These, of course, were concentration camps. And we kept Japanese people there because we were at war Sometimes some Germans would get in there and some Italians as well. It would, Republicans, as you know, refer to illegal immigration as an invasion. They portray migrants as dangerous criminals in military age. The White House said on January 20th it was beginning a process to designate criminal cartels and gangs, including the Venezuelan gang Tren de Aragua, as a terrorist organization, and to use the Alien Enemies Act to deport alleged gang members. Look, this is the way it always starts. You start with the low-hanging fruit. All of a sudden, these are not criminals, they're terrorists. That means that they're enemy combatants. That means that, well, maybe there's support to these terrorists. That would be the other Venezuelans who come in. And they're all enemy combatants, or they're all part of this invasion.
I mean, they're also just trying to say that merely crossing the border in a way that
we're almost there.
Oh, I'm sorry.
We're almost there, because that would just be criminal, right? Like, you have to start with the idea of it being an invasion.
Okay.
Like, there is actually like an attempt to take over the country. And then you are conflating criminal with criminals, like they do with this gang. It's a criminal gang. They don't have any political agenda. They're not a terrorist organization. They are really, like, there's some pretty bad mafia stuff that happened, but they were not terrorist organizations. Colloquially, they may be terrorizing a neighborhood.
Underground people do underground stuff.
But they are, they want to conflate these things. And so then it's criminals go into terrorists, go into invading force. So then the question becomes, how do you get immigrants? How would you get like a mom and her children from being a mom and their children, we're not part of an invading force, into criminal? Because once they're in criminal, they're now into terrorist. And now when they're into terrorists, they're into an invading force. Well, if you wonder how that could happen, I give you Fox's Kayleigh McEnany and Fox's Harris Faulkner.
In the left, for as much as they care about the humanitarian aspect of immigration, tons of people came through the Darien Gap and lost their lives, to your exact point. That image that we see in Los Angeles, LAPD was ready to engage and arrest folks if necessary. They weren't able to do that. And Bill Malugin says he spoke to the rank and file, and they said, this is the same old crap. We're chasing these guys down around all day for absolutely nothing. And this is what we're seeing. I mean, this is resisting Trump. There you're seeing it in LA. You go over to Chicago, and apparently there are these groups where when they see ICE come in these black SUVs, they mobilize. And ICE was actually not able to make an arrest.
ICE has been complaining, incidentally, that too many people are being educated upon their rights, and it's making ICE's job harder. Now, if you are complaining that the citizenry is learning about their rights, and you can't do your job, then what you are saying is that we want to abridge the rights of people in this country, and it's getting harder to do it because people are actually getting trained upon what their rights are.
Yeah.
Just to explain.
Musk tweeted out a video of Ilhan Omar that Ian Miles Chong tweeted out about how she's apparently educating Somali Americans about how to resist this. And he, of course, tweets out that she's breaking the law. Unlike the guy who, without congressional authorization, has broken into and gained access to all of our personal data via the Treasury. He's not breaking the law.
Now, remember, the Republicans, this is the way they do it. They're building a building here. And so they are starting on the foundation. And the foundation is you can do extraordinary things if you can argue that there's an invasion. And then they're basically trying to backfill. How can we make this an invasion? Well, criminals are no longer criminals. They're terrorists. They're part of an invading force. They're combatants. And then then immigrants aren't just immigrants. They're not just undocumented. They're not just doing a civil violation that is equivalent to a speeding ticket. They're criminals too. And then all of a sudden it opens up the floodgates as to what you can do.
For absolutely nothing. And this is what we're seeing. I mean, this is resisting Trump. There you're seeing it in LA. You go over to Chicago, and apparently there are these groups where when they see ICE come in these black SUVs, they mobilize. And ICE was actually not able to make an arrest in Chicago on that day because the community mobilized. But who are you mobilizing to support? The guy in Boston who had a second-degree murder charge? The guy in San Antonio who was found with a murder weapon from an unsolved murder last November, who was, by the way, released by Biden into the interior? Who exactly are you protecting? How about the guy in Buffalo, who is someone who was accused of all kinds of sexual trafficking and was found with an innocent young woman who he is believed to be trafficking at that moment? This is who we're going after. So work with us to protect the innocent and act humanitarianly by stopping some of the things that we're seeing.
The worst go first. Like, who would defend against that, Marie?
Well, the Trump team has been telling us that the worst go first. And I've said on this network.
Well, there's a lot of transparency. I mean, we see.
I've said on this network many times, I support convicted criminals being deported. We saw from some of those early flights to Colombia that it included pregnant women. It included children.
Did they come over illegally?
It included, but they had not been convicted of crimes.
No, the first crime is when you break our law of sovereignty.
The Trump team said it will be the hardened criminals, the people Kayleigh mentioned, convicted of violent crimes.
And if they are with other illegals who cross the border?
Are we okay deporting pregnant women who have not committed a crime except for coming here? If we are, then we should say that. The Trump team should say that.
Yep, she should, because
they don't.
They are not being transparent. Kayleigh McEnany is reading off a list of anecdotes because she's basically just going to the ICE social media feed. Actually, Bradley, could you pull up ICE Gov Twitter? Because this is where they're posting all of this kind of stuff. They're basically posting graphics about the people that they arrest with that they say have criminal records, right? But according to, I think it was like now the numbers are a little bit updated. It's at least 8,000 people who ICE has basically rounded up at this point. Yeah, this is the kind of thing that they're posting. They've posted, according to the New York Times, a few dozen of these graphics. Arrested and pending removal, and then they'll list the person's name and the crime that they have allegedly committed. But there's a huge gap between a few dozen graphics on social media that still we also can't verify, but they're claiming it, and the thousands of other people.
They're not even claiming that we have deported 2,000, thieves and 3,000, aggravated assaulters. And to be clear, it is not a crime to cross the border without documents. You can say, well, we say illegal immigrants. No, you say illegal immigrants. We don't say illegal drivers who get a ticket because they're speeding.
Yeah.
We don't say illegal elderly who buy drugs from Canada. We don't do that, but we just do it with immigrants because you have been propagandized. Crossing the border without documentation is a civil violation. It is not a crime under the criminal code. That's just the case. But they're going to essentially get us there so that they can turn it into a crime. Yeah. I mean, listen, it is not a crime to name the names in a newspaper story or into a magazine story, the names of officials who are going in and getting the source code in the Treasury. But all of a sudden, when the Attorney General of D.C. says it's a crime, then they tried to criminalize this. And that's what they have done with undocumented immigrants. And this is what they're doing. And they're trying to build this case, and they do it step by step, the same way they led us into war in Iraq, frankly. It's just step by step by step. They build these narratives.
And this is why, this tough on crime stuff really has been leading to this very moment, which is putting a section of the public into a mass hysteria and obscuring the fact that violent crime and crime in general has been on a steady decline, with the exception of 2 years that align with the pandemic, but now it's on the decline again. Really, since honestly before I was even born. And now you get people into a hysteria. Now there's cell phones everywhere, so people can see violent acts in cities, and it gets posted on the New York Post social media, and you can get people in suburbia feeling like a little bit scared. And then you get to broadly classify just people and mothers and children. We showed that 18-year-old girl who got into a fight with her brother and was detained by ICE yesterday in Massachusetts. They get to be classified as criminals because there's crime all around you. The statistics may not show it, but there's crime all around you, and you've got to be afraid. And your white daughters may have to come into contact with one of these scary brown criminals. And let's raise that level. So the gang members are now terrorists. By the way, Trende Aragua, remember that story in Aurora? That was the gang that they claimed had taken over the apartment complexes falsely. They're terrorists now, so we can throw them in Guantanamo Bay. No habeas corpus, no rights. Like, they could just be detained there in this concentration camp for forever. And then now criminals can also be detained there. And you know who criminals are? Anybody who came to this country without the proper documentation. And the people that did come with proper documentation, people with temporary protected status, people who use that app that the Biden administration used, where you uploaded all your data and your information, so you were legally entering. Well, you may not be a criminal, but we're still going to deport you, even though you went and did exactly what you needed to do. So that's the level of cruelty that continues to be raised on this front.
Relatedly, there's this piece from Bannon and Douthat that we played a little bit of this yesterday, but here is basically Bannon saying there's going to be a lot of pussies in the Republicans who just want to deport criminals, and Douthat sort of feebly says, well, that's kind of my position.
He's definitely not a transhumanist, and we'll stop that part of it. It's going to be tough. I didn't say these weren't tough conversations, and we're going to have tough moments. Like, for instance, the deportation of all 12 million illegal aliens. I see already in the Republican Party some people, well, maybe we just get the criminals. Maybe we just get the bad ones. Maybe we do this.
Yeah,
we're going to have so many fights going on.
That's basically my position. But
Did I tell you, Ross, at the beginning of this, what pussies the conservatives are? You pussy.
Especially the ones who write columns for the New York Times.
No,
so well known.
No, you're too much of a humanist. That's your problem. You're
feeble. Call him a racist, Ross. Step up.
Let's get Steve Bannon to write the editorial so we actually know what conservatives actually think.
That's a great point. Right. He's auditioning there.
No. Understand. Just, this is a complete tangent. The reason why the New York Times puts Ross Doth out as a columnist and not Steve Bannon is because they want to pretend that the conservative movement is something different than Steve Bannon. They put Doth out there in the guise of educating the liberals so they're not in a bubble. But I got news for you. Doth out's in the bubble. Bannon, if you really want to put conservatives on there, you put conservatives on there. And then you teach the American public, this is what conservatism is. This is what the real Republicans are doing. Not in your fantasy world that it's 1958 and it's impossible to tell the Republicans and Democrats apart. All right, let's go to the phones. Calling from a 424 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hey, this is Hank in Los Angeles.
Hank in Los Angeles. What's on your mind?
Hey, what's up, guys? Sam, you and I talked a few years ago about woodworking.
I just think I saw you tweet that or something.
Oh, hey, Hank. How are you?
Hey, it was nice to see. I told you I'd call back. I finally found out about that oil that you asked me to look into, so I'm just updating you on that.
Wait, what was that? Because all I saw from that clip was that like a piece of wood went into your eye.
Oh, no.
Yes, it was fun. I got to see your face there, and sorry about that. I didn't realize how painful it felt. Made everybody else feel. Yeah, it was just a safety tip. I had injured myself slightly, and I just wanted to share that with you. But and then you asked about like the bespoke cutting boards I was building, and woodworkers are very generous with tips. So I was hoping to sort of start that conversation and maybe call back and get back into it and stuff. But I had another topic. I was actually part of the Young Turks unionizing drive, and I then you guys might not have realized that I was.
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
Well, I had no idea.
Well,
Yeah.
I know now, but I mean, I was in New York, Hank, so I was a little removed from this. I found out a lot of these things about a lot of this stuff later, Hank?
You there?
Oh, no, we lost him.
We lost him.
Oh crap.
That's weird.
It's the deep state.
Polymarket.
If you call back in, we'll...
Did he call on the Polymarket hotline? That was probably the mistake.
Yeah.
Well, we'll take another call, and hopefully we'll get him to call back. Let's see here. Calling from a 626 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from? I don't know if I ever got that oil tip.
Holy cow, is that me?
Yeah, 626.
Hi. Okay, sorry about that. I'm a little nervous. First time, long time. So I'm in I'm
name?
Sonoran Clown. Sorry, I'm Sonoran Clown on Twitch.
Okay.
Pogger. I'm in a suburb east of Los Angeles, kind of close to like this hub of industry. I kind of just want to like gab and then hang up and let you guys gab some more. Okay. My main, like, growing up, we have these films like A Day Without a Mexican. We have Spanglish, right? That Adam Sandler film.
Yeah.
And like, there's so much nuance to like this conversation. And like, I remember growing up, we would like talk about like, well, why isn't there like this Euro travel like type of passport that goes on in Western Europe, or at least in Europe in general, but not here in the Americas, like at least North America, like Canada, the States, and Mexico. And to me, like thinking about it now, it just speaks to like the racism behind that like issue, right? Like, of course, like Americans would never sign up for that because of the volume. Like they don't want to deal with migrants of this volume, and so they'd rather translate that to crossings over the border. And then that just validates their racist concerns of like, oh gosh, well, if we had open borders or like this type of open system where workers can come in, it's nebulous to them. Like these horrors are like endless. And to me, it seems like such a like easy solution, right? Like you create this legal pathway where workers can come in, send dividends to their family, right? There's like an Economist article that showed that, I don't know, almost 10% of Mexico's GDP is remittances. So, this seems like such an easy solution to like that problem. And then you create like massive ports of entry where people can go through whatever security system. And then like you whittle down that issue that Fox News loves to like exacerbate, right? Or whatever the word is, where it's like, oh, well, people were dying crossing the border and this and that. So disingenuous. Like,
yeah, they don't care.
and they were suing the nuns that were sheltering these poor migrants. And so it's just, I don't understand. That was something I was mulling over. And so I'm just going to hang up and let you guys talk about that. But thank you so much.
Thanks for the call.
Appreciate it.
Bill Clinton wanted to liberalize the economy with things like NAFTA and have money be able to cross borders a lot easier. And so not just Bill Clinton, the entire neoliberal project. And as a way to try to make up for that, what the impacts of that, they said, we're going to ratchet up immigration enforcement. That's the trade that was made, and it was a bad one.
I mean, what do you say, Matt? Like that fascism, there's a working definition if you allow capital to move across borders, but not human beings.
Yeah, we have a whole bunch of people who simultaneously want a Gestapo on the border and Bitcoin to be able to cross borders as easily as possible. That's you can't do both. Otherwise, you're going to get these sorts of display. And like, also, we talk about an invasion. Venezuelans are coming here. That's it. The extent like we're invading our country with other people's people by using our foreign policy. We destroyed, the Center for Economic and Policy Research have pointed out how much our sanctions did to destroy that country and destabilize it. And so we wonder why all these Venezuelans are here, for instance. It's because we destroyed their country trying to do a coup, which Chris Murphy, one of the people lining up to say let's strengthen our border enforcement, supported. So simultaneously, we have senators saying let's try to coup these governments, destabilize their countries. Oh, and let's lock up the people that are displaced. Yeah, we're completely up the creek without a paddle.
It also seems to me that one of the ways of addressing this would be, I mean, and I think, I don't know, was it Bannon who mentioned this? I read, some right winger talk about the implications of things like NAFTA, of our importation of corn into our exportation from this country into Mexico, where a U.S. ear of corn was cheaper than a Mexican ear of corn, and what it did to campesinos, and they come into the cities, and then they can't find work, and so they come north. If we were to invest the kind of money that we have invested in helping people wage war into the Mexican economy through aid, and made like Mexico raise their standard of living, we did the same thing with, I don't know, places like El Salvador or Honduras or Guatemala. You would see a lot less immigration. I mean, if we were if we decided to stop interfering with these countries, over time, they would be able to build institutions and some form of democracy. In some places they have it, but I mean, it's certainly been inhibited over the years because we sort of like take them off the track when we support a coup. And economic support would go a long way to creating more of an equilibrium, so there isn't this sense that you need to leave your country so that your family is safe or your family can eat. All right, let's go back to. We have 424. Is that Hank back? Is this Hank?
Hello.
Hey.
It's Hank.
Sorry, we lost you
I'm here.
earlier. Yeah, what happened?
I don't know. Incompetence, probably.
All right, fair.
I must have
What was
clicked the
the
button. I
oil?
didn't mean
Did you
to.
tell
Yeah,
me
I
what
don't
the
know.
oil was last time?
Yeah, it's a super expensive. I sent you guys an email, but it's a really expensive. It's like $180 a liter type of oil that it's an email. I don't want to say it publicly because these are industry trade secrets. We got to protect
the
IP.
Everyone's
That's not the
taking
right way of saying that,
woodworking
but
so seriously.
All right,
yeah.
Well, check that out.
I'd love to call back some other time and we could get into
What
it
did you
though
put in the
because I love
subject?
chatting woodworking.
What did you put in the subject?
Hank and oil.
Okay, I will look for that.
Craft oil. Yeah.
Craft oil.
All right.
That should get you there. You search
Okay.
for that. Yeah. Awesome.
So what
Nice
did you want to talk
to you guys? Oh yeah. So I've actually been a listener of yours since mid zeros and kind of back when I started listening to TYT and the Air America days, sort of. And so I ended up working for the Young Turks starting in 2013 and worked off and on between 2013 and 2020. So I was part of the unionizing drive that occurred in 2019, which there's a lot of misinformation and confusion about regarding what happened, largely from the communications that Jank and Anna put out around the time. So since then, my working conditions were central to why we unionized in 2019. And I just wanted to kind of, with all the stuff that's going on online, and I've been making a film documentary about what went down called Tell the Truth, Jank. So there's kind of a lot going on with this story right here, and I don't know how much time you want me to take up, but I just thought I'd try to connect with you guys and fill in some of the gaps because the what TYT's audience was told about how and why the union started was not true at all. There's and Cenk actually just recently this week was on another show, the Generational Change podcast, saying the doubling down on the smear. Honestly, it was really weird and insulting for him to tell the audience that the union was originated by outsiders in order to harm his run for Congress. So yeah, I'm jumping around a bit. So
why don't you
kind of wacky.
Cliff Notes
I don't want to go.
version,
Yeah, give us the Cliff Notes. I don't want to spend too much time
Sure.
on this because obviously a lot going on in the news. But
It's
go ahead.
There's so much more important stuff in the world, and the film is intended as like a service to the labor movement, as an educational project. It's not just about settling a beef. It's about like using Cenk's clumsy capitalism to illustrate things that workers need to raise their consciousness about, and fundamentally it's about leverage, about why we need to use collective bargaining to stop the bosses from destroying the planet, essentially. Not that Cenk's the only boss that's destroying the planet, but this system we have clearly is not working for anybody except for a tiny bit. But anyway, so yeah, a little background, and I also want to just be really clear that I am not speaking for the union. I didn't make it into the union. I was laid off about a month before they came forward, so I just don't want anybody to think that I'm trying to represent the Young Turks Union. They're on Twitter, TYT Union. Go follow them. Just quick background. I worked at TYT starting in 2013, and then I was also on the Jimmy Dore show in 2016. So you might recognize my voice. I was before the cameras came on, so I was before the Ron Placone era, if you'll recall. In fact, Sam, when you mentioned that clip where Jimmy posted about Hillary's Parkinson's, like I was the guy that like tagged and titled that one. So I've been in this world for for quite a while. In fact, I remember seeing you once at TYT. By the way, taller than I expected. By the way, always a nice bonus.
All right, flex on him. But Hank, Cliff Notes. Cliff Notes.
Cliff Notes. Oh, sorry. That's just okay.
Keep going.
So the union actually originated 18 months before Cenk became a politician. And the story that they put out is that the fact that IATSE, the union we were joining, endorsed Cenk in that campaign is the reason why the union started. So there's a major discrepancy between the timelines here. And I'm positing the theory that the thesis that the reasons that they weren't honest about why the union started is it because it would invite scrutiny of Cenk's employment practices, like a very natural question to why did a union showed up. Okay, well, why did they unionize? The answers to that question would show like exploitative working conditions. In my case, and just so people know, I have all the receipts posted on my Substack. I have done a ton of work on this project. But in my case, when I was hired, I was brought back as a full-time video editor. I was made an independent contractor and worked for zero benefits as well as was the lowest paid editor in the company at like around $21 an hour. After asking for help, like constantly requesting, hey, can we fix this? Can we fix this? Also just keeping my head down and doing my job you can only complain so much. They switched my classification from independent contractor to part-time and still got zero benefits. And that's around the time when we woke up the union drive in order to try to do something about this, because clearly management wasn't interested in my interests, and my friends and I, they had their own reasons as well. Those other reasons.
Was this when
people didn't like?
What was the time? When was the big investment from whoever it was?
The Quibi guy.
Katzenberg.
When did that happen relative to what you're talking about?
I think that was around 2016, 2017, if I recall. There was the initial union attempt, as was documented in the Politico article that was written. By the way, there's like 4 articles about this that are really thorough. I recommend people look those up. I can provide links on my Twitter. That was near the tail end of sort of like TYT got all that money and then expanded, and then I think they might have overshot a little bit. And then I think during their contraction, they had a round of firings, and that round of firings in summer of 2018 scared off the first union attempt. They got intimidated. It just felt too intense for them to try it. And I wasn't there for that union attempt, but it was for a different set of employment conditions that needed dealing with. Then I came back to the company the end of that year. They were familiar with my work. I live close by. I asked if, and so I came back in, and immediately it was just like, it was just a massive ethical boundary, like a completely disrespectful working conditions to like call you an independent contractor while you're sitting next to people who are called employees. Right. They get benefits, you don't. They get days off, you don't. And then the major twist of the disrespect knife was when I asked for help, like, hey, is this a mistake? Can we fix this? What's going on here? Aren't you guys worried about your brand? Like, this is stupid. Don't you have self-preservation? You know you're Cenk Uygur, right? The answer was, we'll make you part-time. And I still worked 40-hour weeks. I wasn't working part-time hours. I was working 40-hour weeks, called part-time for zero benefits. And then after 12 months of full-time work, I did get hired for the third time. I'm doing air quotes around hired. For the third time, then at that point, I finally did get benefits. I got my first payday off. But by that point, we were deep into the second attempt to unionize. And then Cenk goes and runs for Congress and surprised everybody. And that adds a lot of detail to this whole story. So the film is kind of an unofficial documentary about his campaign.
Interesting.
And I've done a lot of work on it, and it's been a nightmare. Honestly, it's a horrible thing I need help with. So I'm hoping to get some attention and some support. So yeah.
What's the website? If somebody out there wants to help you with the editing of that documentary or whatever, or just to read more about it, what's the website that people can go to?
YouTube, Winners and Losers on YouTube, youtube.com/winners and losers. I also have Patreon. I have support links in my descriptions for every video. But on YouTube, you can find me Winners and Losers.
Okay.
I show up in the chat occasionally here, and I'm good on the editing. I need promotion and money.
Right.
That's the help I need from people. So it's a big project, and I'm looking forward to watching Emma on the Bituation Room podcast this afternoon, by the way.
All right. Well, thanks for the call, Hank, and I'll look up and find out where that oil is. Appreciate it.
Yeah, and maybe I can reach out when I have the fundraiser going, if that's cool.
Okay, let us know. All right, bye-bye.
All right, love y'all. Bye. Be safe.
Thanks.
Bye. Thanks.
All right, calling from a 504 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hi, I'm Allie. I live in Virginia.
Allie in Virginia. What's on your mind?
So I just actually wanted to add to something you just said about USAID and how they have supported Mexico and other countries, and how that could be presented as a way to deal with immigration. What I wanted to add is that also, I think a lot of Americans don't really understand that a lot of immigrants don't necessarily want to be in this situation, right? Like, the majority of people would love to stay in their home country, but whether it be because of an environmental disaster, let's say ruined their farm, their livelihood, they now have kind of nowhere else to go, or a place like Haiti, for example, where they're having just destabilization, and, for their safety, they have to leave. If more Americans understood that, I think you would also get more sympathy and a more humanizing view of immigrants, but also more support on things like USAID. Just for some background, I work at a nonprofit where we do get USAID funding, and I can tell you firsthand that is very impactful for a lot of people. And currently with the situation, people are really scared. They're really scared. They're really concerned of what this means for the future, not just of their countries, right? And then on top of that, I think I put a comment last week that this is also impacting the nonprofit sector. In my organization, we had to furlough most people, and now we're kind of all hands on deck to see if we can get private funding and things like that in order to survive these next 4 years. So, you're going to start seeing a lot of layoffs, not just in D.C., but around the United States, and it's really going to hurt. So, I just wanted to say that, and thank you. This is my first time calling in.
Is most of your work as an organization? You're in the U.S., but most of your work is geared towards what countries?
Right now, the majority is in Africa, Southeast Asia, and the MENA region.
Interesting.
So, North Africa, Middle East, in terms of Southeast Asia, like India, Thailand. And we do have some Latin America ones, but I believe under Biden, there just wasn't a lot of grant opportunities. It was way more concentration, especially after what happened in, October 7th. There's a lot of investment in the MENA region right now. So yeah, right. But just something to point out. But thank you.
Appreciate the call. Give us an update. Send us an email at majorityreporters@gmail.com. Just curious how you guys fare.
Thank you.
Good luck. I'm
Thank
sorry
you.
you're going through this.
Yeah, I think highlighting specific programs, like the way that Elon was going after like Lutheran adoption services. Now, I think there's frankly a history of problematic stuff with religious adoption services, but I think playing them politically is important.
Let's go to 913 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hello, this is Ben from Chicago.
Ben from Chicago. What's on your mind?
Lots, but wanted to talk a little bit about minimum wage today.
Okay.
All right, so this feels like an old headline now, but a couple weeks ago, Republican talking point around minimum wage was ultimately pushing it down to the state level. And there's problems with that for a number of reasons, but particularly pertaining to workforce, we really don't have a minimum wage currently. Emma's talked at times about immigrants often being paid some minimum wage. That's actually also true for lots of individuals with disabilities. And here in Illinois, Pritzker just passed the Dignity and Pay Act, which will actually be eliminating sub-minimum wage by 2029. And I believe we're actually only the 18th or 19th state to do so. That's like a very small component of the problem, really, because beyond that, as you probably know, many individuals with disabilities receive benefits. Those are actually federal benefits, and those are based off of the federal minimum wage. So those are static benefits, and if an employee passes an income threshold, which is generally around $1,300 a month, they lose access to those benefits. So what it is in reality is employees who are earning a higher minimum wage based off the state that they live in are at higher risk of exceeding that income threshold and losing their benefits entirely, which is actually encouraging people to just withhold from employment. It's a loss for the employers, it's a loss for the employees. And again, all of this is tied to the federal minimum wage. And then just to follow that up on
so the federal, just to be clear, the federal minimum wage is the threshold. It's not like a poverty measure or a percentage of poverty, that type of thing. It's tied to the federal minimum wage as to whether you get benefits as a disabled person.
Exactly. Yeah, you might hear about like disability Social Security.
Yeah.
I'm not confident that it does ultimately come from the Social Security budget, but it is a federal benefit program. So it's tied to the federal minimum wage. Here in Illinois, our current minimum wage is $15 an hour. So, I mean, just doing some rough math, that essentially means at minimum wage, you're eligible to work half as many hours as somebody from a place like, let's say, West Virginia, where Manchin is actively been pushing against minimum wage, right? And I guess the only other piece to that is saying that it's a state's issue benefits Republican states that are undercutting minimum wage efforts, or I guess conservative-minded states that are undercutting minimum wage efforts, because that encourages businesses to leave states that enact minimum wage laws and migrate to those states. And of course, there's a ton of job loss associated with that. But for somebody with disability who might be coming off federal benefits to go on employer benefits, if that employer leaves the state, which I've seen happen here in Illinois, and those disabled employees are losing their employer benefits, it's exponentially more difficult for them to get back on those federal benefits a second time around once they've come off. So there's just a whole lot of skepticism around disabled employees, which have been targeted now with some of the DEI piece as well, to just secure employment.
Wow. Nuts. It's not going to improve in the short term.
It's not. I mean, states are pushing an effort forward, but I think, my mentality is just that the federal minimum wage does impacts people on a federal level. It's truly not a state's issue. I mean, I think, Matt might refer to this as like chicken shit politics, just kind of scapegoating what the job of the federal government is from a workforce standpoint. So anyways, just want to share that all with you. Sam, at some point I would love to talk again because I'm a military brat and I fully agree that the military ecosystem is 100% socialism. I share that with all my military brat friends to slowly chip away at some of the conservative ideology that they've learned. But I've actually got to run. Thank you all so
Appreciate
much.
Thanks so much.
Forever.
Right.
It's really crazy how, like, you look at how often minimum wage was increased back in the day and how long
It's
been since,
amazing.
and how has it just disappeared from the conversation?
It's amazing. Well, I mean, the present context, there's not going to be a raise in minimum wage.
That's true, but what was Biden doing?
Exactly.
Yeah, what was the last time it was raised was in Bush's first term?
Well, during Obama, there was supposed to be a
got
push.
one in. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Tiny.
But it's still the same that I was paid when I worked at McDonald's or about the same. Like I was making like $7.50 at McDonald's, and I can't imagine trying to pay rent in 2025, $7-8 an hour.
Nope. All right, time for one more call. Calling from a 530 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hi, my name is Jesse. I'm calling from just across the river in Manhattan.
Jesse in the big city.
Yes, sir.
We look across the river longingly.
Yes.
Someday we're going to
Yeah, I mean, it's windy over here, so don't look too longingly. Yeah, so I had a very quick comment. I went out and canvassed for Zoran Mamdani a couple weekends ago, and just wanted to encourage everyone that's listening to get involved in some way with local politics. I just left feeling so, I guess, encouraged and the solidarity we can actually win on a local level, and that filters up, and it's just really important. Very good. But my question, very brief question as well.
I will also say, you work in a campaign for someone like that, that's an organization that they're going to maintain afterwards. I mean, that's the difference.
Right.
You go out and, I would never, ever, ever encourage anybody to work for Andrew Cuomo in any capacity for anything. But if you were to go out and campaign for someone of that ilk, even someone like a Brad Lander, that organization is not going to be around in the same way that the one that you would get from Mamdani. It's just different.
Right. Yeah.
And
it was full of just
Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say it was full of working class people, union organizers, and it was 25 degrees outside, and there were almost 400 people that showed up for the first canvassing event 6 months from the primary. It was, like I said, just incredibly encouraging.
Well, I'm ranking him first. I mean, there's no question. As of now, I'm probably going to rank Lander second, but I'm open.
I would say Lander should get off of his, I have lots of plans. I'm not like the other people who say they can make a magic wand and solve public housing. I'm not here for that sort of technocrat BS anymore.
My favorite was to look at, there was a interview that Mamdani did with the New York editorial board, which is like a aggregate of writers in the city. And Ben White, he's the guy from Semaphore.
Yeah.
Asked him what would you do, and Zoran said something to the effect of I'm just paraphrasing. Oh, here it is. Okay, is there anything that you would spend less money on? Which is in and of itself sort of like a catty little thing to say.
Yeah.
But Zoran said I'd spend less money on the New York Police Department communication department. And Ben Smith saw that. I saw that in your release, but this is a huge city. That's a gimmick. That's $5. It's about 6 or 7 people. And Mamdani said it's about 80 plus people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is amazing. So my question to you is basically what was the reaction when volunteering for him? Because there was a poll in the New York Post the other day that had Andrew Cuomo at 35%, and then he was in low double digits. Mamdani
third, I think
as was
still
Lander.
third.
Still third though. So I'm just wondering how the hell we can cut into that Andrew Cuomo.
Small D Democrat said, is there any laws about working as a canvasser for Cuomo but telling everyone not to vote for him? I find that hard to believe there could be a law like that.
We'll have some fun.
Yeah.
I'll see you out the trail.
I mean, we definitely found that there was a lot of excitement about Zoran from the doors that we were knocking on, primarily because you're leading with, like, he's running a campaign that's focused on lowering the cost of living, and these are the actual, like, material ways that he's going to try and affect that. And so there were certainly some people that kind of shut us down and told us that, free buses were, waving a magic wand at a problem, and that there was no way to actually do that. But overall, people seemed like they were very interested in his movement and his policies, who he was. And he's also just a very, like, dynamic and charismatic guy. So very, like, hopeful for what it actually looks like in the future.
Let me just add a word of hope, and then I got to let you go because I'm up against it. In primaries, particularly like New York City mayor, I mean, we see this across the board. I mean, this is why there's some people who have some hope about New York's 21st, its special election. The people who come out, you saw this with Crowley and AOC, like these type of primaries offer unique opportunities. And in this era, this could be one of those things. So I would encourage people, if you want to go out and get involved in something, you're in New York area, sign up for the Mamdani campaign and get out there. I mean, this is, Cuomo is a juggernaut, but it's not,
Very
there's
vulnerable.
there's a lot of vulnerability. He has name recognition, but I don't know how deep. He may have wide support, but I don't, relatively. But I don't know how deep that is. And in a primary, that depth is pretty important. But I appreciate the call.
And Mamdani, the last thing I'll say about it, that ad where he went around to everyone that donated to his campaign, and he was in every borough, and he went to Staten Island and talked about their lack of transportation into the city. Like, he needs to drive up those numbers outside of Manhattan and even wealthier areas of Brooklyn. And I think he really does have a shot. It's a beautiful ad. It like made me tear up a little bit if people want to check it out on his page.
All right, a couple of IMs and we're out of here. Louis, Big Eater. Hey, Marco, just got back from week-long vacation. Anything important happened while I was away?
He's not
New Midwesterner. Federal records show 97% of the money coming to Lutheran Family Services in Nebraska is for substance abuse and mental health services. Disgusting.
Yeah. Didn't they, wasn't that their solution to gun control, mental health?
That's the thing is, we were at the end of a century where conservatives have been trying to funnel any sort of social service through.
Oh, it's all supposed to be happening to be charity.
Yeah.
The amazing thing is that it is. The reason why they don't want that is because it's also proof that doing church-based charity would not work if you got rid of social support in terms of dollars. They may be able to distribute it in certain instances, but they cannot raise that money because if they did, they wouldn't need it from the federal government. And in fact, the federal government should be setting up their own agencies to do this. Clem, I see Sam and Emma are prop clipping now on the YouTube thumbnails. I would also say I don't know what prop clipping is. We still have not figured that out. DSA Aaron in Atlanta. Big Marco. Transgender comic book sounds dope AF. Kowalski from Nebraska. Former Secretary of Defense under Donald Trump, former General Mad Dog Mattis was quoted saying, "Every dollar you take out of our foreign aid program is $2. I will need to purchase an ammunition to fix the same problem."
Well, that's why he was fired.
He didn't deserve the name Mad Dog. He was Tame Dog.
What if the $2 goes to a private intelligence company? Then it's a win-win.
Number 13, I'm not sure the caller understands racism. Too many whites here would burn the world down other than help non-whites. Ultimate Warrior, I don't think that's the I don't think that's the majority.
I think it's the demos and their increasing racism. I think it's something other than that.
Ultimate Warrior, howdy folks. I watched the new Wicked movie with my conservative brother the other day, and he was dumbfounded when I told him the animals were symbolic by the woke DEI oppressed by oddly mustached man in gray outfits. Left his best. All right, 3 more. Ginger Punk. Hey, MR Crew. While doom scrolling last night, I saw a user agreement update from PayPal hit my inbox at around 11 p.m. I haven't read it through all yet, but current users only have until February 13th to opt out by closing their account before it takes effect.
What's the change?
I don't know. A militant apathy. Trump meant it when he told black people that Mexicans were stealing their jobs while they are screaming DEI and simultaneously going after HBCUs. Trump believes that black people should be uneducated and back in the fields. And the final IM of the day. Omega, what you guys are saying is true, but so many around me don't understand that it's alarming that an unelected individual is running around with turbo virgins and might steal everyone's identities. In a short amount of time, we're stuck with so many who don't think about how web like these situations become. We're cooked. I mean, that is the dilemma, right? Like, do you say, okay, I'm going to have Scott Murphy out there to talk about how like this is a giveaway to China and blah, blah, blah. Or do you argue the process argument, which may not be as sexy? I think you could do both, but you don't want to cheer on the demise of an agency in this manner because it does stuff that you don't like, even if that stuff is really bad.
I mean, he's saying it's filled with a den of radical Marxists. I mean,
and that's the message that people are going to get, not the one that's saying it's nefarious in the way that we can. Exactly. Yeah. All right, folks. Sorry we had to be quick, and by quick I mean only 2.5 hours plus the extra 6 minutes. But
somehow there's still more news that we didn't get to.
A lot more. We'll see you tomorrow.
Yeah, I don't think you're melodramatic at all.